जय राधा माधव कुञ्ज बिहारी। गोपीजनवल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। गोपीजनवल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जना। यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जना। यमुनातीरवनचारी। 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 जय राधा माधव कुञ्ज बिहारी। जय राधा माधव कुञ्ज बिहारी। जय राधा माधव कुञ्ज बिहारी। श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। Hare Krishna, we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, Chapter 8, the story of Pingla, text number 27. You can repeat. Tasya viddashaya shusyad vaktraya dinachetasa nirveda paramo jagne chinta hetuhu sukhavah. तस्य विद्याशया शुष्यात् वक्त्रायादीनचेतसा निर्वेद परमो यज्ञे चिन्ता हेतु सुखावह। तस्य विद्याशया शुष्यात् वक्त्रायादीनचेतसा निर्वेद परमो यज्ञे चिंता हेतु सुखावह। Tasya vidyashaya shushad Vaktrayadina chetasa Nirvedo paramo jadne Chinta hetu sukhavaha Tavini sashudhushat Vaktrayadina chetasa Nirveda paramo jadne Chinta hetu sukhavaha. Word for word meaning. Tasyaha, of her. Vitta, for money. Ashaya, by the desire. Shushyat, dried up. Vaktraya, her face. Dina, morose. Chetasaha, her mind. Nirvedaha, detachment. Paramaha, very great. Jadne, awakened. Chinta, anxiety. Hetuhu, because of. Sukha, happiness. Avaha, bringing. Translation and purport by the disciples of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Translation. As the night wore on, the prostitute, who intensely desired money, gradually became morose, and her face dried up. Thus, being filled with anxiety for money and most disappointed, she began to feel a great detachment from her situation, and happiness arose in her mind. Purport. It appears from these verses like on this particular night, the prostitute Pingla was not at all successful in attracting customers to her house. Being completely frustrated and disappointed, she gradually became indifferent to her situation. Thus, great suffering sometimes leads one to the path of enlightenment. Or, according to a Sanskrit proverb, disappointment gives rise to the greatest satisfaction. The prostitute had dedicated her life to satisfying the lusty desires of many men. Engaging her mind, body, and words in the service of paying lovers, she completely forgot the devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thus her mind was most unsteady and disturbed. Finally, being completely frustrated, her face and throat drying up, she began to feel indifferent to her situation, and happiness arose in her mind. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guroho Shri Yutapatakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shri Mate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauratvishe Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarobhasya Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam karoti vachalam pangam langahite girim yatkripa tamham bande Shri Guru Dinataranam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Hare Krishna. So reading from this chapter of Pingla, who was a prostitute. Srimad Bhagavatam is called as Amal Puran. And here we are discussing about prostitute early in the morning, because that is also connected with Krishna. the sages of Naimisharanya, Shaunakadi Rishis, they asked to Suta Goswami in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Athavasya padam bhoja makaranda liham satam kim annai dasa alapir ayusho yad asadvyaya. They say that devotees are always accustomed to lick the honey which is coming from the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. So they say, please describe to us if these topics are related to Lord Krishna. If they are not related to Lord Krishna, then please don't describe them. So even the topics of great people become insignificant if they are not connected to Krishna, but even the topic of a prostitute becomes significant if it is connected to Krishna. In the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, there is one verse which says, Satam ayam sarabhritam nisargo yadarthavani shruti chetasamapi pratikshanam navyavad achyutasya sat striya vitanam iva sadhuvarta. So, that is mentioned, Paramahamsa devotees, those who have accepted the essence of life, are attached to Krishna in the core of their hearts. And He is the aim of their lives. It is their nature to talk only of Krishna at every moment, as if such topics were newer and newer. They are attached to such topics just as materialists are attached to the topics of woman and sex. So any topic becomes enlightening if it is related to Lord Krishna. In this particular section of this particular pastime, Pingla is getting detached from all her lovers. The verse is quite interesting. It says, Tasya vitta shaya shushyat. Her face was getting dried up because she had a desire for money. And Vaktraya is again her face, Dina Chetasa. Her mind also became very morose because of that. Nirvedha paramo jadne, and immediately detachment arose in her heart. So how wonderful it is when we are intensely desiring something and detachment arises. Yesterday Naveen Krishna Prabhu was very nicely describing the two characteristics of material pleasure, which are even described by Srila Rupa Goswami in Nectar of Devotion. So the two characteristics of material pleasure are, the first is bhoga tyaga. We desire to enjoy one particular thing and then the next moment we are detached from that particular thing. Again we want to enjoy, again we get detached. That is the nature of material pleasure. And Prabhupada gives the example of a person going to company. Monday to Friday he works very hard, then tyaga. Saturday, Sunday I just want to enjoy. Then again Monday to Friday bhoga. Then Saturday, Sunday he wants to just relax. So bhoga tyagya is the first characteristic. The second characteristic is chapala sukha. Chapala sukha means flickering enjoyment. Now Pingala, as she was enjoying for quite a lot of time, it could have been natural for her to get detached, because anyways material pleasure doesn't give any happiness. Yehi samsparshaja bhoga dukha yone evate. But the fact that she was enjoying and she was looking for lovers means she was getting some taste out of it. Yesterday we were discussing something about taste. So she was getting that rasa, material rasa, which is again very flickering, very temporary and very insignificant. But along with that particular rasa, she was also getting money. So she was attached to the money as well, which was coming from it. So when a person is too absorbed in materialistic things, spiritual life or spiritual knowledge can generally not enter. It becomes difficult for the spiritual knowledge to enter the heart. Therefore it is said that some people are kamand. Like Ajamil, he was kamand. He became so kamand after seeing the prostitute, again another prostitute. He became so kamand that he even kicked out his parents, he even threw his wife and kids out of his home in order to enjoy with that prostitute. Because he was blinded by the desire to enjoy, blinded by lust, kamanda. Ravana was also kamanda. He was so blinded that so many people told him, don't even dare to take Mother Sita. But he was totally overwhelmed with that desire to enjoy. Then we find some people are madand. They become intoxicated. Intoxication of Material things is one aspect, or intoxication, when we get intoxicated by drinking, it is one type of intoxication. But another intoxication is when one is intoxicated by pride. Then one doesn't see anyone or doesn't see anything. And it happened with Daksha. Daksha's example comes in the 4th canto, wherein he is so intoxicated by his position that he feels, why is Lord Shiva not getting up? Okay, my father Brahmaji is not getting up, it's all right. Lord Shiva, I have given my daughter to him. He is younger to me, he is inferior to me, he should get up. And pride was the beginning of his fall. Like it is said, pride cometh before the fall. So if we are proud, then we are already fallen. What comes ahead is a detail. So some people are madanda, they get intoxicated by pride. Some people are dhananda. Nalkuved and Manigriv, when they were enjoying in Mandakini Ganga, they were not only madanda, but they were dhananda also. They said, we have a lot of money, we can enjoy with these girls. And they got cursed by Narad Muni. They are fortunate in one sense because they got freed from their despicable situation. Here in this particular verse, Pingla is experiencing a crisis in her life wherein she is experiencing detachment. Previous to that, she got frustrated. She got frustrated and she got disappointed. So, crisis in our life can either lead to fall down, or it can lead to breakdown, or it can lead to enlightenment, depending on our situation. In the 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, there is an example of Krita Dyuti. The crisis in her life was her son died untimely. Son was very young and he died. And instead of that crisis leading to enlightenment, Krita Dyuti's crisis led to breakdown. And she started blaming the Supreme Personality of Godhead. On the contrary, we find Srivas Thakur's son had died. And Mahaprabhu was saying that I am not feeling happy in the kirtans today, is something wrong? And before that, Srivas went to his relatives, to his wife and other ladies, those who were crying inside. And Srivas said, stop this crying. Even if our child is dead, there is no problem. Mahaprabhu should not get affected by his kirtan. Mahaprabhu should not get affected in his kirtan. So, when Mahaprabhu asked that there is something not right, and Advaita Acharya told Mahaprabhu, Srivas' son has died. And Mahaprabhu said, why didn't you tell me this before? And immediately went to Srivas Thakur's son who was dead. And he said, Srivas, what love you have for me. And how can I give up the association of such devotees who have got so much love for me? Even his son is died. And actually, our acharyas in Bhagavad Gita, especially Baldev Vidyabhushan, Sridhar Swami and Vishnu Chakra Thakur, tell that for a father, departure of a son is the most tormenting, most difficult situation for a father. And therefore, I know some people, those whose sons have departed, and they will be like always remembering their son. I knew one Prabhu back in Pune, he didn't have his son. His son was in America and he was earning huge, and due to some or the other reason, he was just found dead in mysterious circumstances. He and his friends had gone to some place where there was a river and something like that, and his body itself was found after a month or so. And he was so broken-hearted. Even after an year had passed, but he was like constantly, he would be having his son's photo on his on his mobile, and he would be keeping that photo in front of the deities, and he would be chanting in that manner. Then he would even his name he had saved as his son's daddy, like that. Like for example, Ramesh's daddy, like that he had saved his name, what we save in WhatsApp. So that is a very, very, very heartbreaking thing for a father, especially that the son is dead. But Srivas Thakur, He was so detached from that situation, that crisis, that great crisis, the greatest crisis which can come in a father's life, that did not affect him. For Kritadyuti's husband Chitraketu, the crisis came in. But what did she do with that crisis? What did he do with that crisis? He broke down initially, but then Narad Muni and Angira Muni came to his palace. And his crisis led to his breakdown, but then from breakdown he went to enlightenment, just due to association of those two great souls. And Bhagavatam mentions within 6 days he had the darshan of Supreme Personality of Godhead. We glorify Dhruva Maharaj. He attained Lord Vishnu's darshan in 6 months. And here we have Chitraketu, who attained Lord Sankarshan's darshan in 6 days. And both of them again faced crisis in their lives later as well. Chitraketu, when he was touring with Vidyadhari woman, he just spoke something to Lord Shiva, because of which Parvati cursed him to become a demon, a very great curse. But that time, it was a greater crisis for Chitraketu, because he was a devotee, he was not attached to anything. But just imagine, you have to get in a demon's body and you have to live with all demons. Sometimes I know of some kids who have to stay with the room partners, those are not devotees, and they are like troubled due to that. Oh, how can I stay with this? They are eating meat, they are doing all nonsense things, we cannot stay with them. Very difficult for them. So Chitraketu, his first crisis led to breakdown, then he got enlightened. Then again crisis came in his life, but he took it so wonderfully that particular crisis, that disappointing situation, the greatest disappointing situation, he took it as a blessing. The same Chitraketu later became Vritrasur, who only sang 4 prayers. But his 4 prayers are so amazing in the Srimad Bhagavatam. How he mentions, Aham Hare Tava Padika Moolam Dasanu Daso Bhavitasmi Bhuya. Let me just engage my body, mind and words in the service of Lord Krishna. Here, the prostitute had engaged her body, mind and words in the service of paying lovers. And there we find Vritrasur, he just wants to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he gives a very nice example. In the 3rd verse he says, Ajata Paksha iva mataram khaga stanyam yatha vatsatara kshudartha priyam priyeva vishatam vishanna manoravindaksha didrikshate tvam. He says, Ajata Paksha iva mataram khaga. Just as the birds, the birds' siblings, those who are there, the small birds, they're always looking for their mothers to come back. That is the first example he gives. Second example he gives, just as Stanyam yatha vatsatara kshudartha, just as the calves are very eager to drink milk from the cow's udder. Third example he gives, just like chaste wives, they are very eager for their husbands to return back. In the same manner, my dear Lord, I want to have a longing for you. So he is giving these 3 examples in progression. The first example he gives, birds looking for their mother. He says, no, that is not such a pure example, because the birds are looking for food. There is some expectation of return in this. It's okay, I will give example of calves and cows. But he says again, the calves are looking for, they are looking of course to meet their mothers, but along with that, they also want to drink the mother's milk. And then he gives a third example. This is a wife who is separated from her husband. She's always longing for the husband, but she doesn't expect anything. She just wants to see her husband. She wants to satisfy and please her husband. She has no other desire, a pure desire. So therefore, he says, let me develop that kind of longing for you, my dear Lord. I don't have any other desire for that. And it is mentioned for 1 year, Indra was cutting the head of Vritra, because he's already gone in Samadhi. And it took 1 year for Indra to cut his head, and Vritrasura already went back to the spiritual world. So, such an amazing consciousness where crisis came, but first he broke down, but later it led to his enlightenment. We are talking about Dhruva also, who attained the Lord in 6 months. But life wasn't that easy for him later also, because when Yakshas killed his brother Uttama, he went on a rampage to kill all Yakshas. Obviously, he wanted to show that he is not having any animosity for his stepbrother and he is wanting to do anything and everything for that revenge. But Bhagavatam mentions a particular word, Ati Rosha. He became too angry. And then Manu had to come. And Manu said to him, "Hey, my dear Dhruva, what has happened to you? You have got the boarding pass of the spiritual world. Why are you throwing it away? Just stop, just stop. This much anger is not needed." And then he stopped, and then Kuvera came, and then Kuvera comes, and Kuvera asks him, "What benediction do you want, my dear Dhruva?" And Dhruva says, "My dear Kuvera, please let me always remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I forgot the Supreme Personality of Godhead now because I got angry." So these personalities, even after having darshan of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, still they faced crisis in their lives. What to speak of Pandavas, they were constantly with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Still they faced so many crises. Vishan Mahagne Purushada Darshanad Asat Sabhaya Vanavasa Kruchatra. But in all those crises, they always remembered the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, any crisis could not lead to their breakdown or their fall down also. So crisis may lead to fall down. We have several examples in Srimad Bhagavatam and scriptures where like Pururava's life, a crisis came in, and the other day we had Hari Parshad Prabhu talking about Pururava's life story. So he didn't break down, but he fell down to Urvashi, and to such an extent that even next life he was like not satisfied. I just want to go to Urvashi's planet, wherever she is. And then finally 11th canto describes Aila Gita, where he gets detached. She also finally gets detached. That has to happen if you are worshipping Lord Krishna. Bahu janma karidhi shravana kirtan tabe to na paye Krishna pade premadan. If offenses are there, many lifetimes you won't attain Krishna. But then if devotee's mercy is there, if Supreme Personality of Godhead's mercy is there, then that detachment will come in life. In Srimad Bhagavatam we have so many examples. Every canto is filled with examples of heartbreaks, disappointments coming in a devotee's life, and that leading to enlightenment. The Bhagavad Gita, we have the example of Arjuna. The first chapter title is Arjuna Vishada Yoga. He is doing Vishada. He is disheartened. But then after 45 minutes, he gets enlightened. From disheartened to enlightened, just in 45 minutes. In the first canto, we have Parikshit Maharaj, who faced a severe crisis. He had to leave his body in 7 days. But he did not break down. He did not fall down. He just surrendered. He went to the bank of Ganges, left everything and surrendered. Second canto describes Brahmaji. Brahmaji was alone. Again a crisis. What to do? I don't know what to do. He was wanting to break down. There was no question of fall down. He just went down the lotus because there was no one apart from him. So there was no one. So he just heard 2 words, tapa. So he did tapasya, and then that crisis led to enlightenment. And then Lord Narayan spoke to him Chatushloki Bhagavad Gita, which is given in Srimad Bhagavatam 2nd canto 9th chapter verses 33 to 36, and that led to his enlightenment. Third canto describes Devahuti. She was with Kartama Muni, she enjoyed Kartama Muni, and then she was like, "What is this now? My dear Lord, you are going now. Who will protect me? I associated with you, but I just wasted my time. Sangoye samsrutar hetur asatsu vihito diya." She says, association should lead to liberation. But what did I do? I got falsely attached to you. And instead of gaining something nice from you, I just wasted my life. But can you give me another chance, please? And Kardam Muni says, okay, there is this son Kapila, so he gives Kapil Dev, and then he departs. And Devahuti doesn't waste any more time now. She's done with all her enjoyment. She says, now I just want to surrender. And she says to Kapila, Nirvinna Nitaram Bhuman Asat Indriya Tarshanat. I have been totally satiated with this material enjoyment. Just like Pingala. Pingala was like Now there is nothing in it. Same thing happened with Devahuti. Now, my dear Lord, I am totally done. Please tell me what to do. And 6, 7, 8 chapters of Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, chapter 24, 25 onwards, till chapter 33, they describe Kapila's teachings to Devahuti. And Devahuti realizes the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And she goes back home, back to Godhead. Obviously, she is the mother of the Supreme Lord, but yes, crisis came in her life. 4th canto describes Dhruva Maharaja's crisis. We described about that. Then there is Bharat Maharaja's crisis also in the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. His crisis led to his fall down in the first place, but then that fall down made him aware of what mistake he did. And even another crisis of coming in a deer's body did not lead to any disappointment in his life, because he was very clear, I have to become enlightened now. I made one mistake, I don't want to make another mistake. One of my teachers would say in my high school, he would say, the greatest mistake is the mistake that you don't learn from the mistake. So when mistakes happen, mistakes may happen, but when we don't learn from the mistakes, then they turn into misdeeds. There is a lecture given by a devotee named Chaitanya Charan Prabhu. It says when mistakes becomes a misdeed. So we need to keep the mistake at the mistake level only and not let it turn into a misdeed. Otherwise we'll have to repent later. And then Canto 7th is Prahlad Maharaja's crisis, wherein Hiranyakashipu is trying to trouble and torture him in so many ways. But there is no crisis for Prahlad because he is always remembering. The example of Smaranam is Prahlada, and it is not that for one day or once in a day he is remembering the Supreme Lord. He is remembering the Supreme Lord every time. And therefore he cannot have any crisis in his life. He cannot be faced with any crisis in his life. So, 8th canto describes Gajendra, his crisis. And Gajendra's crisis was quite profound. He was not understanding what to do. And 1,000 years in that time of crisis, he was trying to get solution, get some material solution. Sometimes that also we may do. We may try to have some material solutions for overcoming our crisis in life. But they will not help us in anything, because ultimately Krishna is the only shelter. That we have to realize sometime or other. Therefore, 2nd canto, Shukadeva Goswami describes Shriya Patir, Yajna Patir, Prajapatir, Dhyam Patir, Lokapatir, Dharapatir, Patir Gatish Chandaka Vrishni Satvatam, Prasidatam Me Bhagavan Satam Pati. Krishna is the Pati. Pati means protector. So any husband cannot be a Pati for that instance, because husband cannot protect. A husband himself is under the jaws of Kala, Karma, Guna, Dhino, Dehoyam, Pancha, Bhautika, under the jaws of Kala, under the jaws of Karma, again under the jaws of Gunas. So what can a husband protect? So therefore the only husband is Lord Krishna. Patir Gatish. He is not only the Pati, but he is the Gati also. He is the destination also. So if we want to get protected in our life, even material protection or spiritual protection, that is available only from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And therefore Prahlad Maharaj is saying, Balasya neha sharanam pitarau narsimha. My dear Lord, parents cannot protect the child if the child is about to die. Like one time in Ganga Sagar, it so happened that there was a boat and all people were going in that boat. And there was his parents and they had a small kid. And the small kid was putting his hand inside the river. And the boatman said, look, don't put your hand, let your child put their hand. There are crocodiles there, we'll all get killed. We'll all die. But they were like, no, it's our child. And they let his child put the water. And what happened is, his hand was caught by a crocodile inside the water. And the crocodile was pulling and the parents were pulling. And the boat was completely turning upside down. And the boatman said, see, you have two options. First option is you both get into the water along with the child. Second option is leave the child. They looked at each other. They said, if we are only not there, how can another child come? So let us leave the child. And they left the child. So they were there in front, but they could not protect the child. So we need to understand that Krishna is the only protector in our life. And sometimes when pain comes in our life, that pain acts as a catalyst to enhance our surrender to Lord Krishna. Crises come in life. All examples in Srimad Bhagavatam are of people, those who were in some crisis in their lives. Because anyone can do bhakti when things are going good in life. Oh, everything is going on good, prasad is good, everything is good, I'm happy, very good. But when crises come, then there is a great challenge. And therefore Bhagavatam describes these examples so that we can also understand when crises come in our life, then what do we exactly do? Do we break down? Do we fall down? Or do we get enlightened? Always in our life, disappointment or disheartening situations or crisis may not lead to detachment. There are a few cases when it happens. Nectar of Devotion describes that for one to practice bhakti, one should neither be too attached or one should not nor be too detached. Na nirvinno nati sakto bhakti yogosya siddhada. If one is too attached to material life, one is qualified for karma, not bhakti, because one is too attached. If one is too detached, then one is not qualified for bhakti, one is qualified for jnana. Because jnana, there is some level of attachment which is required in bhakti yoga also to get attached to Krishna. You want to just give up everything from this world. So as brahmacharis also, like those of us are brahmacharis, we don't need to get detached from everything. We need to get detached from everything material. But we need to get attached to Krishna. If that attachment is not there, then there is no use of that detachment. So, Bhagavad Gita also describes this. Chatur vida bhajante mam jana sukritino arjuna artho artharthi jidnyasu jnani cha bharatarashava. So the most important word in this is sukritina. When one is having some spiritual piety, then what happens? Then even if one is distressed, then one will take to Krishna. Otherwise one will take to drinking wine. One will go to this perception cannabis store to get some marijuana and get freed from that crisis in life. Or one will fall in love, as they say, fall in love. You should rise in love. So in material love we only fall, but in spiritual love, with love with Krishna, we rise in that particular love. So we need to understand that any crisis in our life, it can lead to detachment only if we are having that sukruti first of all, or second thing, if we have devotee association. Prachini Parishad was too attached. He was actually qualified for karma. He was doing a lot of karma kandi activities. But by the grace of Narad Muni, it so happened that he got immediately detached from everything. So devotee association is also that catalyst that can help us get detached very quickly from material life. And therefore, it says, which is that verse? It says, Bhavapa vargo brahmato yatha bhavet janasi tarhi achyuta sat samagama. Muchukunda is telling in his prayers that, my dear Lord, when the wandering life of a living entity is ceased, it is stopped, then he obtains the association of your devotees. Means as soon as association is obtained, material life is stopped. And then Shraddha Ratir Bhaktir Anukrameshyati Paravareshet Tvai Jayate Rati. It says that one gets devotion, one gets love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, it is not that crisis will come or crisis won't come in our life. Crisis will surely come. But what we do from those crises is very important. And we have Pingla here. Crisis came in her life, but she chose to get detached from it. We have another example of Raghunath Das Goswami. There was actually no crisis in his life, but because Pingla here is a prostitute and Raghunath Das Goswami, when he was begging at Simhadwara, he felt that he is not doing the right thing. He wanted to get detached from that level also. So we have examples from examples in various degrees in our scriptures. We have examples like Ravana, who was so attached to material pleasure that even though he had got hundreds and thousands of beauties from all over the world, still he was not satisfied. That is one example. We have example of Raghunath Das Goswami, who was begging at Simhadwar, and then he said, no, this is not good, because I am expecting this will give and this will not give. And Mahaprabhu says, yes, this behavior is like that of a prostitute. Then he goes to the booth where he takes some food, and he says, no, this is also not good. Then he takes the refuge from the cows. The cows which have, even the cows have rejected those grains, he takes those grains. And then he even gives up that, and once in 3 days he is just taking some buttermilk. And he feels that he is doing a lot of sense gratification. So we have examples like Ravana, we have examples Raghunath Das Goswami. We can be neither of them. Right? We can be neither of them. Even Ravana, we cannot be like Ravana mentality we may have in our hearts, but in the kind of enjoyment. And we cannot be like Raghunath Das Goswami also. So we need to have a balance of getting detached from material things and trying to get attached to Krishna, because every material happiness has to end in frustration. We'll end with this particular story of Bhartrihari, who was a very great king, and he was so attached to his queen that he composed 100 verses glorifying her beauty, which is called as Shringar Shatak, and he glorifies the beauty of his queen in that. And that one time a sage came to their particular palace, and he gave a ring, and he told, this ring will give God a lot of auspiciousness to the person who wears it, so give it to the person whom you love the most. And the king naturally gave this ring to the queen. The queen was not in love with the king, she loved another minister, so she gave the ring to the minister. The minister was not loving the queen, the minister loved another girl. He gave that ring to that girl. That girl was not loving the minister, that girl was loving the king. And she comes one day to the king's palace, and she brings that ring and says, my dear king, this is my offering to you. And Bhartrihari gets surprised. Where did this come to me? How did this come to me back? He thought that the queen would wear it and she would keep it with herself. Then he goes and finds the entire channel. And he's like, what was this? Yam chindayami sadatam maisa virakta sapanna mechchati janam cha janonya sakta asmat krute cha paritushyati kachitanya diktam chatam cha madanam cha imam cha mam cha. He says, what was this? I was attached to one girl, she was attached to some other boy, that boy was in turn was attached to somebody else. What was this? Hell with her, hell with that minister, hell with that girl, hell with Cupid, hell with this whole affair. I want to get detached now. And he writes something called as Vairagya Shatak. First he wrote Shringar Shatak, then he wrote Vairagya Shatak. So we also can write Shringar Shatak based on our attachments in this material world. But the goal of our life, just as to go from crisis to not to break down or fall down, but to enlightenment. Similarly, our goal is to go from Shringar Shatak to Vairagya Shatak. And then at the end of our life, just as Prabhupada was asked at the end of our life, what is your desire? Prabhupada said, Kuch ichha nahi. There is no desire now. So that Vairagya Shatak has to come in our life someday or the other. And we are just waiting for that, because see, we are not after detachment, we are after getting attached to Krishna, definitely. But then to the degree we are detached from material things, to that degree only we can get attached to Krishna. So it is a simultaneous process. Bhakti is a simultaneous process of cultivating detachment and attachment. Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehina. Tani sarvani samyamya yukta asita matpara. So one has to be away from sense objects and then engage in Krishna's service. Because sense gratification and Krishna consciousness, they go ill together. Pingla did not have this realization while enjoying her lover. We have Bilo Mangal Thakur again, who had gone to another prostitute, Chintamani. And he with all efforts he went, and she said, if you just had this much attraction for Krishna, your life would have been successful. And it was like Eureka moment for him. And then he went on to become Bilva Mangal Thakur, Vairagya Shatak. Not only Vairagya Shatak, that was Prema Shatak. So if you have to go from again Shringara Shatak, material attachment, to Vairagya Shatak, to Prema Shatak. And he writes Chaitanya Shatak also. No, that was written by Sarvam Bhattacharya. He wrote Chaitanya Shataka. So We have to hit centuries in our life, but those centuries have to take us closer to Krishna. Otherwise, Maya is there to bold us every single moment. She is there. She has arranged, like in cricket they would have power play. In power play they have all fielders which are arranged in closed, and they will put the ball also in that way that the person will maybe go towards the slip, or he just gets out. In the same manner, Maya has set a complete fielding for us, and Maya is only bowling us, and then we have to see whether we get out or whether we hit a six. And then the guide is there in the pavilion there. He is guiding us. Hey, this ball is going to come like this, so just hit it in the nice manner. I say, no. I know how to bat. And then we try to hit, but then we get out. So we have to prevent ourselves from getting attached to material world, but we have to start getting attached to Krishna. And when attachment to Krishna comes, bhakti pareshanubhava viraktir anyatra chaisa. Through that attachment, we get detached from everything material. So as we progress on this path of bhakti, we have to try for this, and then our life can become very successful. So I'll pause here. Any comments?
Hare Krishna. So the process of getting detached due to the frustration of the material world. When we get frustrated with the material world, disgusted with the material world, then naturally people will take shelter of Krishna or holy name and something.
No, they will not take naturally. They will, if they have Sukruti, they will take.
Yeah, they have their Sukruti, they will take, correct. Yeah. So, and on the simultaneously, we see that when somebody passes away, and people, they talk about, Yukta Vairagya, Smashan Vairagya. So, that realization will be there for a few days, maybe months. Then again, the people, it is covered by Maya, and life keeps on going. So similarly, sadhakas also, sometimes we get distracted, again that will be there for a few days, again keep going. So the process is very lengthy, anartha nivritti.
Yeah, definitely, it is lengthy. Therefore, we have a statement in the Shastras where it says, Uttishta Jagrata Prapya Varan Nibodhya Shurasya Dhara Nishida Duratya. Spiritual life is like a razor's edge. One mistake and you get cut badly. Then we also have a scripture, we also have statements like, if you are Shruti Paranadi, Ekantiki Harer Bhaktir Utpatayava Kalpate. If you are not following the Shrutis and Smritis, then your bhakti only will create utpata in your life, nothing else. It will only be a cause of trouble for you and for others also. It will be a cause of trouble. Yet we have another statement in the Srimad Bhagavatam which says, Yan asthaya naro rajan na pramadyate karechit dhamal nimilte maretre nas khaledna patediya. It says that the path of Bhakti Yoga is such that if you run with blindfold on your eyes, if you run fast, still you will not slip also and you will not fall also. So bhakti is a very scientific process. It is a very scientific process. So to the degree we follow the process, just as in an experiment also, in a scientific experiment, we have some aim, we have an objective, then we have procedure, and then we have a result. If we follow the right procedure, we will get the right result. In the same manner, when we follow the process of bhakti which is of Shravanam Kirtanam, Smaranam, all the ninefold process of devotional service, and whatever is mentioned by Guru, Sadhu and Shastra, if we follow that, then naturally we have to come to a level of love for Krishna. That has to happen. It will take time, and as you said, Anartha Nivritti will take time. Those stages are also mentioned by our acharyas, like Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur describes 6 stages of Anishthit Bhajan Kriya, where he says that Ghanatarala will be there, ups and downs will come. Then Vishaya Sangara, struggle with the senses will be there. Then there is Taranga Rangini, one will desire pose, position, name and fame, that will also come. But then when you overcome that, then Nishtha will come. So when Nishtha comes, then there is some steady phase. And after Nishtha, it is a cakewalk after that. Before that, there is a lot of trouble. So therefore, a sadhaka has to be always very careful. Otherwise, one profile pic Profile pic, sometimes we have this tendency, like I do this sometimes you get some new message on WhatsApp and you try to see what is this photo of this person, just try to expand it a bit. So one profile pic can cause a problem. That happened with Ajamil. One profile pic, Shudra and Shudrani embracing. He went to his home, he turned into an Instagram reel. Then he was not satisfied with it. He wanted to create an entire Netflix episode of that. So we need to stop at the profile pic only, or not let that thing happen. Regarding everything in life, like you were talking about somebody dying and then Smashan Vairagya comes in. Says that is there for some days, but Bhakti is not a path of Smashan Vairagya. Bhakti is a path of continuous practice. And therefore another solution is we need to hear every day. Problem happens when we don't read and hear. When we don't follow the process, then there will be some kind of problems in spiritual life. That is quite natural. That will happen for sure. Thoughts? Prabhuji, any comments? Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavad Purana ki jai, Samveda Bhaktivinoda ki